Well, hello everybody. This is Kevin Kyler with Environmental Inspection Dynamics. Now, as you see this load up, and if you've come across this before, you may have already seen and watched the short and abbreviated version. The purpose of this is to give you a better idea of where we, in the environmental inspection side of this problem, come into play. And again, we're on the inspection side, not medical, so therefore let me read the disclaimer. This is for medical information only. We are not medical practitioners, nor are we giving medical advice here, period. C.I.R.S, what is it? Well, it's chronic inflammatory response syndrome. Chronic is when the course of the disease lasts more than 3 months. Inflammatory is the body's attempt at self-protection. You need that so your body can keep you out of getting really sick. It's a warning signal. Response is relating to or being a reaction to the stimulus. That stimulus can be the house or work which you are at. Syndrome is a set of signs and symptoms that appear together and characterize a disease or medical condition. Important. It's an illness that will not correct itself. In other words, folks, it's not a cold. It's not going to go away in a week or so. Regarding the C.I.R.S, this is a quote from Dr. Richie Schumacher. This is an illness, is not an allergy. It is an inflammation within the body which is caused by the immune system that has gone haywire. He continues, it's an illness that is caused by water damaged buildings. That's where we in the inspection field are going to help you on this. It's been called mold illness, biotoxin illness, and now Dr. Schumacher has given it the acronym C.I.R.S. Here's some other people that are involved with this. Of course, at the top is Dr. Richie Schumacher, the pioneer in this field, Dr. O, Dr. Tilgner, and Dr. Thomas. And there's more, trust me. C.I.R.S is clearly gaining credence in the medical community from its association between gene variation and the presence of C.I.R.S. The next information we're going to provide here is from biotoxins and how it relates to C.I.R.S. Okay, this is Aspergillus fumigatus mold spores. It is a toxic form of mold. Aspergillus, SP stands for species, are perhaps the most infectious of molds on the earth. Aspergillus has a twin brother or sister known as Penicillium, okay? There are probably 400 or 500 or more species of those two, and as stated, Aspergillus is the most infectious. What you're seeing there is Aspergillus fumigatus. Now, into this, from the spores and fragments of the mold comes the carriers of the toxins known as biotoxins. Mold goes into its defense mode when threatened by chemicals and other molds, and then it goes toxic. I want to pause just a second. Everybody thinks, oh, black, toxic mold, that's dangerous. Come on, folks. This is blue, right? This is the worst of molds. There are other biotoxin substances that parallel with the mold toxin illness of C.I.R.S, such as bacteria, amoeba, mycobacteria. These produce a variety of toxins such as endotoxins, mycotoxins, beta-glucans, proteinases, volatile organic compounds, and more. Everybody hears of VOCs being, stuff from paints and varnishes and stuff like that. They all, this, as stated, hence, mold is a part of the C.I.R.S equation with the rest of these. And now for the who and how C.I.R.S affects people. It affects only 25% of the world's population that are genetically predisposed to C.I.R.S. In these people, there are genes that have been isolated that keep the person's immune system from functioning properly. The reason I underline is put in red. This is important, so let's relate. C.I.R.S is both multi-system and multi-symptom. Your body has a lot of systems. Unfortunately, C.I.R.S attacks those with multi-symptoms, okay? It affects those that reside in water-damaged buildings, and that's where we in the inspection field come in to help you. It is an illness, not an allergy. The who and how C.I.R.S affects people a little bit more. Biotoxins will not clear out of a person's system. C.I.R.S needs a condition to kind of prime the pump. This can be high stress. Who's not in high stress in this world today? Autoimmune activity, trauma, severely depleted state, and more. Chronic indicators, here we go again with highlighting, like fatigue, memory problems, headaches, cough, congestion, nausea, chronic fatigue syndrome, and more. Worsening of those multiple symptoms and a misdiagnosis of the above. Folks, not all your participating, your private care physician understand this. In other words, you think you got it, you've got to go to a physician who's attended under Dr. Shoemaker's protocol and got certified by this. Not all PCPs know this, by the way. Moving on from there. All right. Oh, yeah, from Dr. Shoemaker's site. And no, we're not going over this. Look, you folks can stop this video if you want and read it over. Or at the end, and I promise you, you'll see it, the link to Dr. Shoemaker's site so you can print your very own. For the purposes of expediency on the following slides, concentrate on the yellow highlighted areas because I'm not reading everything, folks. All right, testing people for C.I.R.S. It begins with an evaluation of historical events, both for the person, there we go, and the residents or wherever you're working or going to school. Then establish the what and wheres. Get it? That's making one sick. The first test is the VCS, known as Visual Contrast Sensitivity Test. Okay. Then at the bottom, it goes down and it says another test is the neuroquant, MRI. That's used for inflammation in the brain. And by the way, as it's stated, this has been used for veterans of PTSD. Okay, here is the visual contrast sensitivity test. And no, I'm not going to give you the test. There's something more important. I just want to show you what it kind of looks like. Here it is. Look at the bottom. VCStest.com. You can go there and get a free, it's limited, the free sample. If you want to expand it, yeah, it might cost you a little. But trust me, I'm sure if you go to the right doctor who studies this stuff, that's one of the first things he may give you. Now on to these things, and I did write myself some notes here so you can understand what all this stuff means. This is from Dr. Tilgner, okay? And I just reading the top there, there's a variety of HLA-DR haplotypes, and you can add to that DRDQ. What does that stand for? Human leukocyte antigens. The DR is the side for mold and toxins for C.I.R.S, and then the DQ side is for celiac disease. Oh, yes, people who have celiac can get this. That's got to be awful. So let's go down under the yellow highlighted, as stated before. Please look at that. The reason I'm relating these to you is because in my past experience with working with people and doing the Army for them, most of them have confided in me that this is what they had. In other words, susceptible to mold is a 72353. Susceptible to multiple illnesses is the 4553. Then going down there in the middle, susceptible to chronic fatigue syndrome. Most of them complain about this, the 4353. Now down toward the bottom, something I want to relate to you. Susceptible to chronic fatigue from Limerix vaccine for Borrelia, 4353. That's for people who get bit by the wrong tick and get Lyme's disease, which is the same treatment they use for C.I.R.S. This gets kind of expanded, folks. Moving on. All right. This one is what's called the human leukocyte antigen, again, HLA, test to determine if the patient is genetically susceptible. Key part to see if the patient goes on to develop C.I.R.S. Now down there in the middle. Talking about that C4A. Elevated C4A leads to C.I.R.S symptoms like what? Fatigue, breathing difficulty, dysfunction of memory, and others. There's a whole lot of things that are going to happen. So when you get a chance to read the rest of this. Next one. Okay, on this one, in C.I.R.S, the VEGF, which stands for vascular endolethal growth factor, okay, is suppressed due to high cytokine levels, which then cause muscle cramping and exertional fatigue. Let me just relate a little bit about cytokine levels. They cause harmful inflammation, but there are good sides to that and there are bad sides. So your prescribing doctor will know which side you should be on. Down to the middle. All right. This is the anti-gliadin antibody AGA. In C.I.R.S and celiac disease patients, the peptides can cause inflammatory and immune reactions that prevent intestinal walls from closing properly. And I got more on that at the bottom when they're highlighted. But let's go to the middle where it says MSH, where melanocyte stimulating hormone deficiency is very common in patients with C.I.R.S. Low MSH increases susceptibility to mold illness, and there it is again. Chronic fatigue, chronic pain, insomnia, and more. Skip down to the bottom. Low MSH levels allow inflammation to rise out of control and allow intestinal gateways to remain open, causing the leaky gut syndrome. Now, let me read, just make sure my notes are right. Now, listen, folks, again, I'm not a doctor. This is how I think it happens. You need to confirm this with the proper officials in that field. Leaky gut syndrome, the vicious circle starts at the leaky gut intestines, goes back into the bloodstream, then into the liver, then into the pancreas, then into the stomach, and the vicious circle starts again. For C.I.R.S people, it doesn't end unless they get the right medical help. One other thing I wanted to mention, it is important, and we'll get to that again, and I may mention again, is things that that they can give you prescriptions to help you get rid of this and help that leaky gut syndrome. One of them that I was associated is called cholestyramine in C.I.R.S. Okay, it can help remove toxins in the bowels and is eliminated, I should say, via feces. Okay, you just plain simple, you poop it out. Why? Well, if I understand it right, cholestyramine produces a positive charge in your body, whereas, let's give it negative because, the toxins, we consider it negative, attaches to that stuff in your intestine, and guess what? You eliminate it. That's got to be good, right? But I think there are others that are being brought about by pharmaceuticals. Moving on. All right. This one is called antidiuretic hormone, ADH. Go down to cayenne. It says electrical properties of increased salt create a battery effect and can cause static shocks. Yeah, and people with that, they walk around zapping themselves. Does it get worse? It can. Down in the middle. In C.I.R.S patients, it causes hormone deregulation, then results in daytime what? Fatigue, insomnia, dizziness, and low blood sugar. That has to do with that stuff called ACTH, which is adrenal corticotropic hormone and cortisol. And if I mentioned that or not, I will right now. There are good cytokine levels that produce cortisol, all right, and there are bad ones. It's getting it under control in the right way. Now down to the bottom. It says C.I.R.S elevated PAI1, which stands for plasminogen activated inhibitor, can cause blood clots and fibrosis, abnormal formulation or formation of connective tissues. What I should have read, and let me pull up my pointer so we can see this right there. Okay, together with PAI1 and ACA increases what? Boy, that can't be good. Risk of stroke, heart attack, and all the rest of this stuff, and prevents blood from clotting. In other words, I think they're trying to tell you you can bleed to death. All right, we're at the end of that stuff, okay? The genetic and biomarker testing. This is the VIP replacement, is the important last step of Dr. Schumacher's protocol for restoring health for chronically ill patients. And what I just told you, he may prescribe cholestyramine as well. Down at the bottom there, thanks to Dr. O, we got a visual of a normal brain and a brain exposed to toxins like the PTSD. So there are tests that can help diagnose. All right, let's get on to the testing side where us in the environmental inspection field come in. ERMI test is for determining extent of biotoxic contamination in homes. Here we go. ERMI stands for Environmental Relative Molding Index and was developed by the EPA. All right, two things I want to remark on. The two individuals that did that, I believe, are Stephen Vesper and King Tae Lin, both PhDs. They patented this with the EPA. It is a screening tool to evaluate potential risk of indoor mold growth in homes. Mold is ubiquitous, everywhere, and accumulates in homes over time. It is found in accumulated dust, not just spores floating around, folks. The analysis is done, and I'll read that out. Mold specific quantitative polymerase chain reaction. Boy, that's a mouthful. But silliness aside, boy, where have we heard PCR with COVID? You get it? So what's it about? All that stuff looks, it looks at mold's DNA for the good ones and bad ones, as you're about to see, and we'll expand on that. All right, now keeping the pointer up here. ERMI test. This was me. I did this so I could show it, online for videos here. We don't do this way anymore, and these are the instruments that's on the end. What I would like to see when I talk about, you see about micrometrics, is if they would use the color graphing in there instead of just a black and white. We're going to show you what this is all about, the index values and the results. But first, let's get on to how the testing is done. By the way, I'm sorry, but Kev should have had the blue glove on, blue nitrile glove. That's important. That's what you're told, how you have to follow those protocols. It's done with a Swiffer, and by the way, it has to be unscented. Then you got to collect, though you don't see it, you got to collect about 5 grams of dust. Then you have to reverse fold it, pack and label it, and provide a COC. No lab accepts any of this without a chain of custody document. All right, moving on to the other things that we do in field testing. Look, when a person's sick, they want to know, well, is there something in the home making them sick? So in other words, let's go down here. Something on the outside is affecting the environment on the inside, right? Then we use a bunch of other instruments here. Hygrometers, point radiometers, myriad of moisture meters, and then one other thing that we use, I'll show you in just another slide. The reason we do a picture plate like this is so we can observe outside conditions for this house. And by the way, this is one of the clients I did who had ERMI. We gave them an alias of Jones. Okay, wow, it was done in 2017, 7 years ago already. Time's flying. All right, there's the other instrument. We use thermal visual image sets to help us see what other areas can become problematic. Moving on, there again is another thermal visual image set. There's the moisture meter. By the way, I don't use what's called a particle counter anymore. It just wasn't giving me what I really thought it would. This is the important part. Let me explain. All right, we're going to read about actually what I did, and the reason I'm telling you this is it was the gal who was of the husband and wife here who was so sick with this. He loves his wife so much, he was doing everything immediately, to reaction to get it done. So I told him, well, some pump well cover needs to be sealed. Shouldn't put cardboard boxes on the floor. You should put a P-trap on here. Your humidity in the basement was too high. And then out of all the accessible HVAC joints, you should tape them. And I'll get to that in a little bit. All right, here comes the blue glove, okay? That's me dusting all these parts. This is the actual job. I have to do this to provide this to the lab so they can see how I went about it. Okay, tops of kitchen cabinets, tops of fans, back of electric devices, back of the computer bench, back of a TV maybe, top of a china cabinet, more cabinets, top of the door of molding frames, more fans, floor standing lights, more shelves, back of TV equipment. You can see where we collect all this from. Now let's look at this. I'll read this. Don't try squinting your eyes. Okay, This is the IRMI assessment and findings narrative that we did for these clients. Okay, now, right there is important, and you'll get this when we get to filling out the COC, which you're going to see in another slide or two. The client requested this IRMI, the EPA's Environmental Relative Moldiness Index test for sampling, I should say samplings, and property assessment of what we did, okay? The client had positive return on the HLA, DRDQ haplotypes for C.I.R.S as developed by Dr. Schumacher. In other words, it's affirmed by her doctor that she's got this. Okay, that's important. And then here it is. The impending results of the dust collection points, those are called samplings, will come via the IRMI in what is known, as you're going to see this, the 36 panel from Mycometrics. Moving on. Here's the most important part that, let me just state this. This house was so clean inside for the most part, it would embarrass the white glove. But the blue glove showed up. Okay, laugh. All right, now, in our assessment of the unfinished basement, we noted several concerns. The existing sump pump well does not have a seal-tight cover, suggest installing as organic microbial compounds can be expelled from the open perimeter drain tiles. Of course they can. On the floor, we noted that the client had considerable cardboard boxes in direct contact with the exposed concrete floor. Suggest elevating all that stuff off the floor utilizing plastic totes. The reason I state that is if there's high enough relative humidity under there in the very, parts of the summer where the humidity goes up, you'll start growing mold. All right. Then I go down to talking about, suggest taping all the HVAC duct joints with UL 181 foil tape, as that prevents dirt and debris from getting entrained inside the system, and it optimizes the running performance. New ASHI codes now mandate that, by the way, folks. In addition, I say, hey, your HVAC and AC condensate lines from the powered furnace humidifier, that is, should have P-traps installed to maintain positive working pressure in the HVAC system. Here it is, right there. And to prevent unwanted gases from being siphoned out of the floor drain and off the floor. You don't want that going into your system and your HVAC acting as the conduit. The hygrometer, the important part was right there. The hygrometer, the instrument we use for measuring relative humidity and temperature, taken in the basement, indicated above 64%. That, as we state, is in the above normal range for basement humidity levels, especially in the summer. We suggest utilizing at least a 70-plus pint dehumidifier with several box fans to chase the moisture around. You know what, folks? The guy did that right away. Wow. Now, this is what's known as, you see, COC, chain of custody. This is the standard for Mycometrics. No, I didn't use that one. Laugh a little bit with me on this one. This is for doing the IRMI. As you can see, and it hurts me. I love that. Oh, please test this because it hurts me. Get it? At any rate, the most important part, and you'll see that coming up right there, what this states and why I like using Mycometrics. But first, this was the panel. That is all the molds that are tested, 36. Here's the hurts me in case you want to know. And under there, it only does 5. It does penicillioides, Aspergillus versicolor, Chaetomium globosum, Stachybotrys chartarum, and Willemia sebi. Nasty ones, folks, but you can see all the rest of the panels. Now, here it is. If you're looking at that, that was the old name of the company. Now, as you can see, it's just Environmental Inspection Dynamics. This is what's got to be filled out. I just took a pic, scanned it, put it in there. Crossed out, I X'd the IRMI. And where it says address where this was taken, I see the attached narrative, and we're going to get to that, is why I did all this. The places where I sampled, and then down here it says see attached report narrative. What does all that mean? Well, let's read this. This is why I expanded it here. Okay. What Mycometrics additional information requested, what you saw. Under comments, it says optional. In the space below, please provide as much as possible. First, the time since the carpet has been recently installed or cleaned. Second, the time since the property has been renovated. And third, the time since the property sustained what? Water damage. Any additional info as to why you are sampling for the Army. Use the back for more space. He wants to know, does this person actually have it? Yes, they do. I'm going to read you something on why I highlighted that there. Dr. King Tae Lin of Mycometrics is more concerned for the overall scenario of what is happening at the client's property and the client's health. None of the other labs do this, by the way, just him. And who these two guys were, Stephen Vesper and King Tae Lin, are both PhDs. They wrote this. You can go to this later and go write that down and go check those brainiacs out. Now, as promised, what they got to do on this, they actually wind up subtracting these from this one. In other words, they're subtracting the 16.72 from the 14.32, and as a result, you're going to get a negative number, minus 2.41. Here's what I don't like, what Mycometrics doesn't do. Remember, the one you saw had kind of green, yellow, and then red. Well, this gal was upset because she was in the good part, the negative. I mean, that's what happens to people who get C.I.R.S. They get so upset. They want to know what's going on. There must be something. So you can understand that, all right? But just pointing that out. Now, all right, this is what's sent to the client, all right? And here is the composite of all this. The results returned were the sum of the logs. I explained it to him. Group 1 minus sum of the logs, group 2. The calculation, 14.31 minus 16.72 equals minus 2.41. Here it is. Concentrate on it right where I got that marker. This indicator shows a low mold burden for this residence as determined by the ERMI relative moldiness index. In other words, they've actually established a threshold point. It's only one out of these aerosols that has that. And then we continue. We believe what Dr. Schumacher states. For that, and I'll move it over here so you don't have to squint so hard, that for the health conditions of the residents of the affected individual, the score value must be right there, less than 2.0 on the ERMI scale index. And then I go on, look, folks, to all my clients that put this, go see what both Dr. King Tae Lin and Dr. Richie Schumacher have to write about this. Now we're closing. Hey. And as promised, there's one more slide. We're not quite done. Stay with it, folks. So let me read this. In closing, if you suspect something is making you ill, something in your home or workplace isn't right, your primary doctor can't figure it out, you're getting frustrated and depressed, then maybe, underlying maybe, you have C.I.R.S. If you're genetically disposed. You owe it to yourself and your loved ones to check into the possibility that it may be C.I.R.S. Now, again, bit of a disclaimer. We can help you with testing on the residential workplace, school side, and all that, but we cannot do that on the medical side. You need to go to the pros who have been ordained, so to speak, by Dr. Richie Schumacher and have passed his certification. Now on to the last. Here we go. I'm going to kill my pointer here. Any rate, as you can see, all these are active. So what I suggest you do is wind up either clicking on them if you can through your side of the video and go seeing them. There's Dr. Schumacher, Dr. O, Tilgner, Thomas, Pinto, and this is a guy with the VCS stuff. All right, there's ERMIs, MLab P and K, which is now known as Eurofins. Okay, and then up at the bottom is Mycometrics. Now, I want to close with this. There is considerably more information to be found on the web by just Googling or searching C.I.R.S. You can also call us at the number below, as we're delighted to share the information that we know. We're not doctors. Look, folks, I bid you to stay safe, stay well. Thanks for watching it. If you've got any concerns and I can help you, please give me a call. Thank you.